Of all our senses, smell has the most direct impact on our feelings and influencing our day-to-day behavior and the way we interact with others. As autumn is a time of transformation, we're here with Rachel Hertz, PhD and world-renowned expert on the psychology of smell and emotion, to discuss the importance of fragrance and emotion and learn more about how fragrance can help encourage us to step out of our comfort zone this season. Thank you so much for joining me, Rachel.
Thank you, Makeba.
Now, why does our sense of smell, how does it have the ability to affect our mood and help spark various feelings, especially as the seasons change?
So our sense of smell is most directly tied to the parts of the brain where emotion and memory is processed. So compared to any of our other senses, so for instance, smelling, seeing something, hearing something, touching something, when we smell a fragrance, it instantly ties into the emotion centers of our brain and triggers the feelings that we have connected to it. So it really can bring us full-bodied into a state of mind. And when the seasons are changing, we're changing with them. And we want to have emotions that bring us into the seasons with inspiration and invigoration. And sometimes people can think of autumn as a time of year when they feel, oh, I don't want summer to be over, and they feel sort of wistful about autumn coming along. But rather than feeling that way, you can actually feel really tempted and invigorated by fragrance at this time of year because there's all kinds of wonderful new fragrances to be had.
Oh, wow, that's so fascinating. Now, what are some common fragrances that people are drawn to during this time of year?
So great question. So we typically look to nature to see, what's changing around us, and we often associate things like apple and pumpkin and cinnamon spice and so forth with this time of year. And actually the reason I partnered with Glade is that they have this great understanding of the importance of fragrance, and they've come out with this new limited edition collection of autumn fragrances. And these fragrances build on those traditional fragrance notes, but they take it to a new place. They bring in new mystery and new glamour, and they get people outside of their comfort zone so they can really enjoy and revel in the fragrances of the season rather than it just being the same thing that you're used to.
Oh, wow, that sounds great. Now, how can autumn fragrances help evoke feelings of temptation and exhilaration in your home this season? Can you go into that a little bit more?
Sure, yeah. Well, because the way that scents immediately trigger the parts of the brain where we feel emotions and motivations, as soon as we use a fragrance, so for instance, if you burned a candle with a certain fragrance in your home, then you would really be able to feel those emotions. So we can bring in new decoration, and that's all really great, but when we bring in a new scent, that really triggers how we feel, and it can change the ambience, it can change our mood. It can also, if we have people coming over, when they walk in, they'll get feelings of inspiration and invigoration because of how we have scented our space.
Now, those sound like great reasons to change the fragrances in your home. Now, can you tell us other reasons as to why is it important to update your fragrances as the seasons change?
Yeah, so it's definitely important to update our fragrances with the seasons. First of all, because the seasons, each one brings with it its new set of feelings and states. And so we want to be able to connect with that. Rather than kind of shrinking away, we want to meet it head on. We want to embrace the new season. So new fragrances, which are invigorating and energizing, those can really help us meet the season with happiness head on. The other thing is that we don't want to keep smelling the same thing over and over again, because actually the more we keep smelling a scent, the less we're actually able to smell it. So you may have had the experience of using a perfume every single day, and then after a while you can't smell it anymore. Well, the same thing happens when we use fragrances in our home. If we use the same thing all the time, we can't smell it anymore. And if we can't smell it anymore, then we're not getting the full punch from it. We're not getting that emotional exhilaration. So you want to have a collection of fragrances so that you can mix different ones in. You can bring in a new one here and then change it to something else next week. Or you want to blend them together so you can burn candles with different fragrances at the same time. Or maybe have one room where you have one candle or one fragrance going, another room where you do something different. So you can have this continuous sort of exploration and transformation, and you being able to get the most out of it yourself.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned Unglazed All Fragrances earlier and shared a little bit about that. Can you touch a little bit more upon how those fragrances would be a great way to tie in and incorporate some of those things that you mentioned in terms of transforming your space for the fall season, as well as heightening your senses for the season?
So yeah, so for instance, the spiced apple magic scent. It builds on the traditional smells of apple and cinnamon and nutmeg and ginger, and it brings in something new. So depending upon, you could use it with bringing in different fabrics or using different decorations in your home, or you could just use it on its own to bring in those feelings of invigoration that could bring to you. Or there's this other great one called Wondrous Autumn Nights, and it has sort of a dark sweetness and patchouli and mint and leather, and you can bring those fragrances in. You can bring that maybe into a different room of the house if that feels more natural for you. Or there's Rich Pumpkin Dream, which builds on pumpkin and caramel, and that has kind of a different set of associations. And one thing I want to underscore is everybody's different. So the fragrances that for you resonate the most and what give you the greatest sort of boost of invigoration may not be the same as your next door neighbor or your best friend. And the key is to sort of find the fragrances that work best for you. So I say follow your nose till it takes you to where you want to go.
Absolutely. And lastly, Rachel, where can people go for more information?
So the whole collection of fragrances that are available and a whole wealth of information is available at glade.com.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for joining us today, Rachel. And to find out more on how to tighten your senses this fall season, visit www.glade.com. It's been a pleasure, Rachel. Thank you again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.